All right, so we're getting started with office hours. If anybody has any questions, I'll be here for at least half an hour. It might go over. Let me know if you have any questions. What's up, everybody? Good morning. What time is it over there? What time is it in India? Not familiar with Java at all. I don't use it. Wow, 2:30. Night owl. It's pretty early in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. What's keeping you from being able to complete the course? Uh, 40% in web developer bootcamp. So what's causing you to not be able to move forwards? Stylo, am I full-time freelancer or part-time? Uh, Part-time with my freelancing work, and then also full-time. Like my main gig is the web developer bootcamp, managing that course for Cold Steel, and then I also do the MySQL course, and then I do some tutoring, which is like more of a part-time thing. And then I have some like little personal projects and stuff, and then just anything else that comes along. So it's all 1099, it's all contract. So I guess you could say I'm a full-time contractor, but I don't work full-time. All right, so let me move this live chat over so I can see. Okay, so Alright, so you're saying that you aren't able to finish the web developer bootcamp, but you're having difficulty because you're also going to school, which makes sense. I would definitely prioritize school. Just do the course whenever you can. And then you're also trying to build a expense management system for your home. Do I have any tips for deploying web apps for production? It just depends on what you're building the application with. So if you're building a web app with, something like Ruby or and Cold Steel's web developer bootcamp, they use Node, then you could use something like Heroku, which is like super simple, straightforward. It's going to cost you, if you want to actually have like a legitimate production website that people can visit regularly, then the minimum expense is $7 a month. If you have like some workers or some additional processes that need to be run on Heroku, it's another $7. And then if you exceed the bandwidth for that hobbyist plan, then you have to bump up. I think the next step is like $14 a month or $17 a month. So that's Heroku, which is nice if you're not familiar with like Linux or like you running your own server from a shell, as a SSH shell. If you are more comfortable with using the terminal and the shell, then you can use something like DigitalOcean, which gives you a little more control, and it can be a little bit more affordable too. Oh yeah, and then we actually have some hosting from DevSprout that it runs on DigitalOcean. that we offer to students, and then we offer them the support to like help them get their applications up and running. I totally forget about it because we don't really promote it, but so if anyone's ever interested in doing that, just send me a message and I can help you get it set up. Thank you for signing up for that data structure course. That's Colt's course, by the way. I'm not Colt, but thank you. I'm sure Colt appreciates it. Yeah, so talking about the code, getting it ready for production, optimizing memory leaks, etc. So if you're using Node, again, just go to the Node website and they'll have like production stuff. So let me just pull it up right here. Not Node, sorry. When I said Node, I meant Express. So let me switch this over. Alright, so if you go to expressjs.com and then you go to advanced topics up here at the top and you go to security best practices, it's the first place to start with getting your website as secure as possible. Just walk through this list of do's and don'ts and make sure that you're doing as much of that as possible if it applies to your project. Then you have another one called performance best practices. Again, it's got a whole list of things that you need to do to make sure that you're running as optimal as possible. And then if you're using like DigitalOcean, they have guides for things that you can do. And then there's a couple other things in here that you can read through that can help you get your site running optimally. So that is what I would recommend. Okay, so you're wondering what a technique or a method to learn programming or coding, because you don't know JavaScript yet. You've reached the DOM manipulation part. I mean, if you take the course and you watch the lectures, then that'll get you where you need to go. It's going to be explained to you in the video lecture, and then there'll be exercises and projects that complement that, and you can put your skills to use. So if you take that route, it's kind of just a cycle of watching a lecture, learning the material, and then shifting and putting what you've learned into practice. Some people like to take notes and things like that, so if that's your style, that's great, but you can just get started right away. Once the video is over, open up your code editor or your terminal, whatever it is that you're going to be writing your code with, and get started right away. You can do it, and if you're doing front-end JavaScript, you can put these things into practice in the console of your browser, so Chrome console, or in my case, the Brave console. Yeah, that's my recommendation. If you're looking for techniques, just put it into practice. As soon as you start doing it, building the muscle memory, then you'll start running into, you'll be able to identify for yourself where your potential problem points are, and then you'll know what you need to do. Do you need to go back and rewatch the video? Do you need to go ask questions online, Stack Overflow, look things up on the Mozilla Developer Network? So, and until you actually get your hands dirty and start doing it, then you're not really going to know where your problem points are. So someone asked, is TypeScript superior to JavaScript? I don't use TypeScript, but from the people that I do know that do use it, they love it, and they say it's great. So I would just get your feet wet with it. TypeScript is essentially just JavaScript, but it adheres to kind of a more strict set of rules, and in doing so makes it a little bit easier and streamlined to write the code that you're going to write. So I would, like anything, just give it a try, give it a couple days and see if you like it. And if it helps you in your projects, then in your case it would be superior. But it's not something that like completely replaces JavaScript, right? Like JavaScript is the underlying technology, TypeScript's just built on top of it. So I wouldn't write all the syntax and code from MDN on paper, like as notes, you know. I mean, if that helps you learn, great, but I would just use MDN to like look up answers to things. Like if you're wondering, how does the map function work for an array, or how does the upper to uppercase function work for a string, then you can look it up on Mozilla, and then you can take what you see there and you can apply it to your project or exercise right away. If it helps you to remember things, to write things down manually, that's great. So it really just depends on your learning style, but you don't necessarily have to do that. So are you, Mendel, are you hosting a web application from a server, like a computer at your house, or are you just talking about your local server that you just like develop with when you're working locally on your computer? Is it possible to meet Bill Gates? I guess if you're in the right place at the right time, or if you're Mark Rober, I think it was. Someone's asking what's better to master, Node with Express or React? So there's two entirely different things. Node being a backend engine, so basically the backend version of JavaScript, Express being an MVC type Lightweight framework that you can use with Node, again on the back end, and then React being a front end library, essentially a framework. You're going to want to learn, for sure, in my opinion, if you're going to do web development, you want to learn something that's back end. So it doesn't have to be Node Express, but if you have resources for it and you want to learn that, I would recommend it. I love it. I use it all the time. React, it's a different story. If you use it and you like it, or if you need to use it because your job or a job that you want to get uses it, then that's a reason to use it. If you try it out and you think it's great, good. If you try it and you don't like it, or you try Angular, you think Angular's better, or you try any one of these dozens of other front-end frameworks, and you find out that something else works better for you, or you just like writing all your code vanilla JavaScript, whatever's clever. Like just find out what works for you, or again, if it's a necessity, you have to do it because of a job, then that makes sense. But something like Node with Express for the backend, I think is great to have as a core asset. So I would definitely recommend learning it. And then something like React is kind of like a nice to have, but it's not crucial. So, hello world, how to become good in JavaScript? Just use it a lot. The more you use it, the better you'll get. Build more projects. Don't necessarily build multiple projects at the same time, but build like one project, and then build onto that project. And yeah, the more you use it, the better you'll become. You can do stuff like codewars.com, codewars.com, and you can do exercise like that. That'll make you better too. So, but then again, that's just you using it more often, right? So if you need a source to be able to like get exercises from, something like Code Wars, or I don't know if Leap Code is still a thing, but there's a bunch of different places online where you can get free exercises to do. So Mendel, securing your server is not really up my alley because I don't have a home server. But I would just, if you built it with like Ubuntu or some type of Linux distro, then just go to that community. Those communities are huge and people there are very helpful. And just ask like, what, or you can just Google it or DuckDuckGo it to figure out, how to secure your Linux home server. I do like coffee. I love coffee. It's 4 o'clock. I'm like, can I drink some more coffee and still not mess up my bedtime routine right now? Yeah, I love coffee. Where are you from? Do you have experience in any company? I'm from Texas, and I have experience in a lot of different companies. You can go look at my LinkedIn, but I've mostly, in terms of like startups and stuff, I've mostly worked in a teaching capacity or assisting other teachers. And then as a developer, I've mostly worked in a freelancing capacity where I've worked for dozens and dozens of different companies, supporting people that are building projects for their startups, building entire projects for companies, things like that. Whoa, dude, I think you're the second person to send me a, what do they call it, a super chat? That's amazing. Thank you so much. That makes me feel really good inside. Much appreciated. I didn't even realize that was turned on, so thank you, Stylo, for that. I received one way back in the day, I think when I first turned it on. But yeah, that's a great surprise, and I will get some good coffee with that. Thanks. Okay. Do I only teach coding, or do I have a job in some company? So, 1 second. My wife is texting me. I'll answer your question in just a second. Promise. Okay, so back to your question. I'm sorry for the interruption. I don't work for a company. I work for Colt Steel, so I work for a person. Otherwise, I work entirely for myself. I have YouTube. I have affiliate sales for Udemy. I tutor people. If any of you are interested in tutoring, I offer tutoring sessions where I can help you learn things. I can help you with personal projects. Most of my tutoring is with people who have real jobs, who need help with their work for their company they work for, or someone who's like trying to build their own startup and they have a project. I come in and I audit that stuff and I assist them. But some people are also learning and they have trouble with their difficulties with learning, and I help them with that as well. So that's kind of my main thing. So yeah, I work for myself and I work for Colt. But right now, I currently do not work for any specific company. I have worked for several, and those were good times, and I learned a lot. But I'm not currently employed by any specific company. Glad to hear that my videos are helpful to you guys. I'm gonna try to pronounce some of your names. I apologize in advance if I mess it up, but Sorab, Nambiar, glad to hear that was helpful. Thank you. And good, I'm glad to hear that. I'm gonna give your name a try. Is it Raigia? So Hello World saying, when I make a project, should I watch the whole tutorial of that, or should I try to make it by myself? For example, if I want to make a video meeting app, what do I do? All right, so this is a good one. If you want to make a certain thing, what do you do? And so sometimes there isn't a tutorial for what you're trying to build, right? So anything that you're trying to build, any project, any startup, anything, any website, any web app, you need to plan it. So first things first is plan. Write out bullet points or just a general overview of what it is your project is going to do, what technologies you think you're going to need to achieve that, the steps that are like the more you plan. And if you go back to my Code with Node course on DevSprout.io, you'll see like in the beginning of the course we like plan everything. We're like, okay, we think it's going to do this, user's going to be able to do that, and therefore we need this. So planning is crucial. There's not always a tutorial for everything. Find tutorials if you're able to, but if you're not able to, sometimes it's good to find something that's already built, like open source. Go find a video meeting app that's open source, and then dissect its source code, right? That could help you figure out what to do. Other times you just gotta set up a whole list of like things that would, if they were come together, they would make the app, right? So then you have to say like, okay, well obviously users have to sign up, but then how do I make it to where a user can interact with another user over video? And so you have to like research those things and figure out, are there pre-made technologies that you can use and services that you can use, a service being something you have to pay for, or something that's open source, that's free. Probably your best bet is to find open source stuff, but if you do find a service that, it just depends on what your goals are, right? Are you trying to make your own company? Are you just trying to make something you can use with friends? Is this something for work? Once you have the answers to all these questions, then it's easier to move forward with building the application. Silo, absolutely no problem. Thank you again. Really appreciate the super chat. What are the pros of front-end frameworks, and should I use it over HTML? So Mendel, everything, every website on the internet has HTML. Even if you're using a front-end framework and they've got some fancy syntax or whatever, they're still outputting HTML. And you may have already known that. But basically, Front-end frameworks, if you're building a project that's kind of a larger scale, right? It's got a lot of moving parts, then sometimes it's nice to have a front-end framework that can abstract things away from you, right? It essentially like speeds up your workflow. And now the opposite can be true if you're building a simple project that could be built really quickly with just HTML and CSS and JavaScript. And then now all of a sudden you're trying to build it with a framework. You have to set up the framework, your environment for it. You have to learn syntax, and then you have to start putting all these things into play. If you don't have a template, you have to do it all from scratch. That can take longer than just doing it HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So the pros of a front-end framework are if you have a massive project or even a mid-sized project and you want to kind of streamline some things, that can really help. Save you a lot of time. Think of it like this. So if you use JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript, and then you use jQuery, jQuery makes writing JavaScript faster in a lot of cases on the front end, right? Something in vanilla JavaScript that would take 2 or 3 lines of code, you can do it in jQuery in 1 line code. And that's essentially the same as front-end frameworks. Like something that would take you like 20 lines of code in vanilla JavaScript might take you like 5 lines of code with the framework. So frameworks are just like taking different actions and bundling them up into little components that you can use, and basically just like pre-written things that have functionality that you can plug and play in together to be able to build something larger. So that's the benefit of using something like a library or a framework. The pricing for tutoring, Hassan, is $200 an hour unless you buy it in a bundle. I have bundles of, you can buy 5 hours for $900 or you can buy 10 hours for $1,700. So when you build your website successfully, you'd like to contact us. A simple website for all the people in home. Yeah, I mean, if you build your website, we'd love to. I would love to see it. Always happy to look at people's work and provide feedback. Did I pronounce your name correctly? If I did, that's awesome. Yeah, Palo Alto's a cool place. I've been there a couple times. I used to live in California. I don't live there anymore, but I think like Apple might be in Palo Alto. There's so that whole area, Palo Alto, Mountain View. There's quite a few tech companies down there, like Google, Apple, Netflix, etc., Facebook, so on. So, Saurabh, I use VS Code now. So I used to use Sublime because I was lazy and I was comfortable with Sublime. I had used it my whole coding career. And so then I finally like branched out and tried VS Code and I was like, this is incredible. So no more like alt tabbing between your terminal and your code editor, and so having them in the same place and kind of an IDE is preferable to me personally. So once I started using VS Code, I stopped using Sublime. If I was in a pinch, I'd use Sublime, that's fine. And I actually transported all the shortcuts over from Sublime to VS Code, so I don't even know the VS Code shortcuts. I just use the same ones that I used to use in Sublime. Should I use frameworks in general versus vanilla? Again, it just depends on the size of the project. If it's a larger project, then a framework might make sense. If it's something smaller, or you just have like very specific things, then vanilla JavaScript might make more sense. Just think about this. Every time you tie in like a framework or whatever, it's going to add more things that need to be loaded. So it's going to slow things down just a tad. They are optimized, so it's not crazy slow, but having to load, React code. Well, actually, what happens, I'm almost positive, is that it transpiles out to JavaScript, to vanilla JavaScript. Like you write it all in React, and then it transpiles out to ES5, if I'm not mistaken. So in that case, it's actually six one way, half a dozen the other. It's just a personal preference thing. But again, to what I said earlier, if it's a large project, framework will probably help you. If it's a small, very small project, then vanilla JavaScript will get the job done. It's all about having the right tool for the job. All right, so you had something that came up. You're selling your house, and you didn't get to watch any tutorials for 3 weeks, and now you're feeling like you forgot. So one way to instead of having to rewatch everything or restart, I would just build a quick project. Like go back to the like if you learned HTML and you learned CSS and JavaScript, then just build a quick project with those things. And if there's exercises from the course up to the point where you stopped, then do those exercises again. And if you're struggling with them, then maybe you need to go back and watch it, or maybe you just need to look things up to kind of patch in what you're missing. But I don't necessarily think that you have to start completely from scratch and go back to the beginning. I think you can move forward with the course. Also, I think that you'll find that, I mean, you may feel like you're forgetting it, but I think that you'll find that it's like riding a bicycle. Like you haven't done it in a while, but as soon as you get back in the seat, like it's really easy. It all comes back to you. I haven't looked at Svelte. I have looked at it. I haven't used it. Svelte looks awesome. It seems like a really cool technology, but I haven't done anything with it. I know that, what's that guy's name? I think he's German. Maximilian Schwarzmüller, I think his last name is. Anyway, he's big into Svelte. So yeah, hello world. When you're building a project and you forget, like, oh, I have to implement the sign up and the login, and then you go back to like the reference project and you copy and paste, don't worry about that. That happens to all of us. Like if you told me right now, like go write a sign up and a login, I'd probably still have to go like look stuff up and copy and paste. It's totally fine. The big thing is, do you know what each line of code is doing? Like it doesn't matter that you can't remember each line of code, because like I think that a common thing that happens with people in development, web development, programming, coding, is they're coming from an academic background where they feel like you have to know everything, right? You're being quizzed on it. You have to know exactly verbatim what this is and what that is and type it all out. That's not how it is with web development. Web development is you need to understand the concepts, right? And then you need to know the syntax. But if you forget some of the syntax because it's such a huge topic, it's not a problem to utilize the internet and use a browser and a search engine to go look those things up and copy and paste them into your project. Where it does become a problem is when you like Google for a solution and you find a solution that you don't understand and you just copy it into your project, and now you've got a bunch of someone else's code in your project and it breaks your project and you don't know how to fix it because you don't understand the code. So you do want to understand whatever it is you're copying and pasting. But for something like the login and the sign up, if you want to go reference a project that has login and sign up functionality and just borrow that code because you forgot the exact line by line syntax and character by character syntax, totally fine. We're all doing it, all of us. Entry level, mid level, senior level developers. Everybody's copying and pasting, so don't worry about that. Windows Terminal. I don't know. I mean, is that a aftermarket thing, or are you talking about command line prompt? Because I personally use the Bash terminal on with VS Code. Imposter Syndrome. Twitzer, cool name. How do I have any advice for handling imposter syndrome? So, yeah, absolutely, because I dealt with it. It's a really tricky one, right? Because I worked for one company where I didn't even have to work. Like, I was there 40 hours a week, but I probably worked like 1 day a week. Like I would like prep like the night before, and then I would like teach the next day, and man, I would have terrible imposter syndrome. Always worried that like people are gonna figure out that I didn't like know what I was claiming to know. And I guess that's the big thing is that's what it's rooted in, right? Like you start at a company and there's just like this unspoken, like, oh, everyone's supposed to know everything kind of attitude, and you feel like, oh, well, I don't know everything, so as soon as they figure out that I don't know everything, then I'll be outed as this imposter. And so that can feed into like anxiety and stress, and it becomes a problem. Like, it can definitely affect your life. I know for me, I mean, I was going through some personal things at the time too, and so that layered on top of the imposter syndrome was difficult. But my solution and my biggest piece of advice for imposter syndrome is just be honest with yourself, and then be honest with your coworkers and whoever it is that you perceive to be the people that would find you out. Just be honest with them about where you're at, right, and what you know. And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you are worried that someone's going to shut you down because you're asking them questions, then I mean, I would first try and ask them questions, but if it's like a proven fact, like every time you ask someone questions, like a senior developer in the company that you're working for, someone that's supposed to be a mentor to you, and then they're just like making you feel like crap because you ask questions, then it's not your fault, it's their fault, right? Like, you're working with somebody who's kind of an a-hole. But if I think that you'll find, and a lot of people will find, that if they're just honest about where they're at in their learning and their capabilities, then they'll be able to grow a lot quicker, because that'll help them get over the imposter syndrome, right? Because now it's out there, it's not hidden. You're not like, oh, people are going to find out I'm an imposter. People know that you're, just like, let them know that you're an imposter. You're not really an imposter, you think you are, but let them know where you truly are with your skill set, and then be open to help. Like, that's what helps developers grow, coming together on a team or as a community. And oh, you don't know this, well, here, let me help you understand it, or let me point you to some resources that can help you understand it. But if you're working with people that are shutting you down and making you like feel like you can't be honest or you can't be open about your current level, then maybe don't work with those people, or don't be around those people. But make sure that it's not just in your head. Like, if they're actually physically doing that, that sucks. But if it's just in your head and you think, like, I think they're going to do that, well, find out, right? And so, again, the biggest piece of advice I have is just to be honest with yourself and with everyone else around you about where you're currently at, and don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm going to mess up your name, but Mahmoud, you're welcome, and thank you for the comment. Oh, cool. And I'll look up that Windows terminal and see what it's all about. $3 a.m. in India. Appreciate y'all being here. Just a FYI, I'm doing another office hours tonight at 9:30 p.m. Central Time, so I think that's early morning or like mid-morning in India. I'm doing that one on Discord, so if you're not a part of the Discord for the Developer Bootcamp, join it, and then we have a live audio chat where I do office hours, and then there you can actually talk to me and ask questions. So Twitzer, you're very welcome. Hopefully that helps. Half the live stream are Indians, I'm sure. I can show you all the metrics of like where everybody's from that follows my YouTube channel, and a large portion are from India, so thank you. Really feeling the love from India. Appreciate the support from everyone that watches, likes, and subscribes to my channel. Sounds like you're talking about The Secret. Meditate so that we think the universe will make it happen. What is the it that you're trying to make happen? Am I still sharing my screen? No, I switched back to this little office hours thing. Brahma and Muhurtam. Sorry if I screwed up the pronunciation of that. So are you meditating right now, or are you watching my live stream, or both? Seems like you're watching the live stream. Should you use a database for an article's website? So with databases, you just have to ask yourself some questions like, do you need persistence between pages, and do you need not just between pages because that's more of a sessions thing, but do you need data persistence like through the life of the program or the web app, so like indefinite data persistence? And what are you trying to have persist, right? So like if you think about something like YouTube, right? We have to store the video and the video information somewhere, and we have to assign it to a user so that when other users and when the owner come to the page, it's there. So if it's something that never changes, then you can just hard code it. If it's something that changes, then you need to store it in the database potentially, right? Like if you have a blog post, but you can edit it or you can delete it or update it, manipulate it in some way. You know, there's like the obvious things like comments and posts and things like that. Those belong in a database. So if you said articles, you're talking about like news articles or like blog articles, those typically also belong in a database. So you just ask yourself some questions about what you're doing with the data. But if it's just like text that's never going to change, like the front page of a website, then that doesn't need to go in the database. It can just be hard coded into the HTML. But if it's some dynamic, that's the key question is like, is the data dynamic? Is it updating? Is it changing? Is there going to be new iterations of it or versions of it, or is there more than one? Then those are typically, if the answer is yes to those questions, then oftentimes you'll want to have a database to store that data. So Twister said they're learning to program, just trying to pivot into a development role, realizing that memorizing how to solve a problem rather than knowing the exact solution is a wild difference. Yeah, that's a really great point. So me personally, like if I was a hiring manager, and I think this is true for a lot of people, like hiring managers that know what they're doing, right? Because there are some, like sometimes they're just like, oh, you let HR do it, and then they don't know anything about development or whatever, so it gets screwed up. But if I'm a developer and I'm hiring developers and I'm looking at their ability to do something, right, solve the task, whatever it is we want to pay them to do at this company, I'm more interested in your ability to solve problems. Do you have the ability to solve problems, to think critically and to ask the right questions to ultimately get to a solution? Because if you just memorize a bunch of stuff, that's not really super useful to me. Like it's in terms of like speed, if you know the syntax and you can remember it, you know, without having to look it up, that's great. Then ultimately you're gonna be a little more productive in that area. But does that mean that you can solve problems? Like that's the biggest thing. I think that's the most important thing for any developers is the ability to learn constantly, because you're gonna be learning until the day that you decide to stop coding. And then the ability to solve problems. If you can master those two things, learning and solving problems, then the rest is just noise, right? Like the memorization of the syntax and all that, like it's not a big deal. But if you can learn constantly and you can solve problems and you have the ability to think critically, then that's like key, and that'll really take you far. I just read some Sanskrit perfectly. Thank you. Not getting to sleep. A lot of work's pending. So you'll not complete the course just for completing a certificate. No, you want to complete it to learn it. I mean, the certificate's cool. I guess it shows people that you did it, and it's nice to have it on like your resume or your LinkedIn or what have you. But complete the course. I mean, you don't even have to complete the course. Just learn what you need to learn to do the thing that you want to do, right? Like that's how I look at coding in general. For me, it's a necessity. I learn by necessity. So it's like, oh, I want to build this project. What is it that I need to learn to make this project happen? Do I need to learn all of coding, every different little topic? No. Do you need the fundamentals? Most likely. But in this particular project, I just need A, B, and C to make it, come to life. And so then you just learn A, B, and C, and then move on to the next project. And maybe the next project, it uses A and B, but it doesn't use C, but it uses D, like these being just different topics that you have to pick up. And you don't even have to learn the entire topic, right? You just need to like cherry pick what you need to get the task done. So that's how I learn. I don't recommend that necessarily for everybody, but for me, it's worked out pretty well. Where if I have something I need to do, I just figure out how to do it kind of on the fly. So what if only the owner of the website can add blogs and I have admin panel? I mean, you're talking about like a content management system, basically, Mendel. And yes, in that case, you need a database of some sort to store like the owner user, then you, the admin user, and then the blogs. Not necessarily. I mean, that's one way you can authenticate yourself. The other way is you could just have it to where you have a place where you create the blogs, and every time you create a blog, you just have to enter a password. So it's essentially like logging in, but only the owner would know the password. But then if you have a panel, you kind of also need a password for that. So at that point, you might as well just integrate a user interface as well, and then just associate the blog post to the user. So I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Robinhood is telling me that I get stocks if I invite friends. Stupid app. Okay. Which one's better? Not sure. ACC, according to me, EJS or HBS. So EJS is embedded JavaScript, and then HBS is handlebars. They're both templating languages. I don't use handlebars, but I think if I wrote more code more often, I'd probably pick it up because it seems pretty cool. In fact, we got a minute. We got time. Let's look at it. Let's look at handlebars. So we'll look up handlebars.js, and then we'll look up EJS, embedded JavaScript. All right, so here's two websites. Minimal templating on steroids. Get started. So it's a simple templating language. Generate HTML or other text formats, but for us, we're interested in HTML. So like what's inside of here is inside of the what are called mustaches, but the curly braces is these are variables. So like they would be variables coming from potentially from your backend with like Node or Express. So you have simple expressions that's just giving the output of first name and last name, right? So like here's your data, plug it into your handlebar, and then it comes out to HTML. But then they have like nested stuff, so then you can do like something dot something else, which is cool. You can do that with EJS too. Here you've got evaluation context, so you've got this thing called with helper. That looks pretty cool. They have each and with, so you can change the current evaluation. With helper dives into an object property, giving you access to its properties. So with person, so basically it's like destructuring first name and last name out of the person object, as you can see here. And then you have the loop. So like people is a collection, and then you can say like each people. This is pretty cool syntax. I like it. It's super easy to learn, right? I'm just now looking at it, and it all makes perfect sense. So handlebars looks pretty dope. I give it a thumbs up. EJS, tried and true. If you're coming from something like Ruby on Rails, then you've already used embedded Ruby, which looks exactly the same. So it's very easy to transition from one to the other. Again, very simple syntax. They've got your if, blocks, and you've got your each and everything else, .for each. So this one looks a little bit cleaner, but I would just try them both and see which one works for you. Of course, it's what I recommend with everything. It's gonna be like a personal whatever. But yeah, pretty cool. I think handlebars looks pretty neat. But again, to answer your question, which one's better? I use EJS just because out of a matter of like habit, but I would say they're both good. Any good extensions in VS Code for EJS? I don't know if I use any, but we can always look. Alright, let me switch back over. Okay. So I looked at just EJS in the marketplace, and you have EJS language support. Okay, so I don't even have that installed, but it looks 4.5 stars, 289,000 downloads. Looks pretty dope. EJS snippets. That looks pretty cool. It's a clone of HTML5 snippets. Snippets are always good. If you take the time to write snippets, basically a snippet is like you write a block of code and it can have dynamic areas where you can input like custom stuff. But a block of code, and then you just like write out whatever the snippet shortcut is and press tab or whatever your key is to make it turn the snippet on. And then you can just write code super fast. Like let's say you have like a snippet for all the writing your routes in Express, and you just like type routes and then press tab or whatever, and then bam, you have all your routes. Like that could save you a ton of time. Or maybe you have a snippet for like Passport.js or a snippet for boilerplate code in your app.js. Like if you write that stuff out beforehand, it can save you a ton of time. So then there's a bunch of others. I haven't used any of these, as you can see, so I don't know which ones are good or which ones aren't, but I would just look at the ratings and then look at the downloads to see who uses what and how often they use it. Yeah, meditating's good. Meditate for 20 minutes and maybe that'll help you achieve your goals. Definitely help you clear your mind, tap into the present moment. What's up, Haseen? Are there any frameworks or libraries for admin panels in Node or Express? So I don't know that you'll find a library, but you might find something that's already pre-built. So there's one for, there's several of them for Mern, which is the Mern stack. Let's see what else we got here. So you have this Node.js admin dashboard. It's basically just an Express app from the looks of it. It has a template that it uses. So you could just go through it. Super straightforward, not a lot going on here. But it uses handlebars for the template. Quite a few templates in here. So yeah, I would just clone it and see if it's any good, see if you like it. There's another one here called Express Admins, Node.js tool for easy creation of user-friendly administrative interface for MySQL, MariaDB, SQLite, or Postgres databases. So this may or may not be what you want, but you can see it's an administrative interface for these different databases. Doesn't look like it's what you're talking about. Admin LTE Express with Express handlebars and React.js components. So this one uses React, it looks like. Pretty cool, kind of impressive looking. So anyway, you can find open source stuff on GitHub, right? Like, I think I just searched for Node Express admin dashboard GitHub, and then just go through and see what they have. You can actually go to GitHub directly and just search for, you know, admin dashboard Express, and that's just searched inside this repository. So you want to go actually to the home page. And it's not finding anything. Oh, here we go, all of GitHub. So anyway, 54 repositories. Again, there's one for Mern, React, Redux. Here's one for Express 4. Just go through and just look at these. You know, there might be one that does what you need it to do, and then you don't have to waste time coding it yourself. So that could be helpful. All right, so I got a question from Johnson. No problem. Thank you for joining in on the discussion. your question, which language do you use for app development? So you're talking about like mobile apps? It's up to you. I've never used Flutter. I've heard good things. Native app development languages. So right, you can use Objective-C, or you can use Java, if you want Android, or if you're trying to go with iPhone or whatever. And then there's that proprietary language that Apple uses. I forget what it's called, but apparently it makes coding for iPhone apps really easy. The other thing is you can use something like Flutter. You can use React Native. If you're familiar with React syntax, you can use what is it called? Ionic, which I think is both React or Angular, whichever you prefer. It used to be Angular for sure, and I think they also added support for React. So there's a lot of different options out there for building mobile applications. You can do it with JavaScript. You can do it with any one of those languages I just mentioned. It really just depends on which ones you're really familiar with or which ones you're interested in learning. And then you may find that one has limitations and you need to use another. So I don't do mobile development. I used to, but very briefly. I did mobile development with JavaScript, but I haven't done any of that in a long time. So, tired of your retail job? Well, that's one reason to pick up coding for sure. Just make sure that you enjoy coding. Otherwise, you'll be coming back in like a couple years and being like, yeah, I need to find something else because I'm sick and tired of my coding job. If you like coding, then it's definitely it can be an appealing career for sure. Just know that you'll be sitting at a computer or standing. I actually had a treadmill desk for a while where I walked while I was coding. I ended up selling the treadmill because it was like hurting my feet, I think, or hurting my ankles. It was doing something weird to my shins or ankles, I can't remember. But I actually lost weight while I was doing that because I was like constantly walking. I was walking at like half a mile per hour, like 1 mile per hour, really slow. But it was kind of a cool experiment. So can I say a bit about data mining with React and maybe natural language processing? Are the courses on Coursera for this worthwhile? So I haven't taken them. With any course, my recommendation is obviously if it's expensive, be wary of it. Unless it's just providing an insane amount of value, has crazy good reviews, and like this is going to be a good pick. But then also make sure that it has like a good return policy. That's the other thing. Everybody knows with like Udemy, it's like 30-day return. You buy it, always buy it on a sale, which sales happen like every other day on Udemy. So never pay more than like $15 US. And then if you don't like the course, just return it. So if Coursera has something like that where you can like get your money back if you don't like it, then just in that case I would just say get your feet wet. I haven't taken any of those courses, so I don't know. Data mining with React, I don't know anything about that, or NLP stuff, unfortunately, so I can't really say one way or the other. Or data mining with MongoDB, whether that's sustainable long term, or if you should migrate to the cloud. So MongoDB can be in the cloud, by the way, but I don't have any experience with data mining, so I can't really tell you one way or the other. I'm going to try your name again, Raiya. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Hopefully you get some sleep before whatever you have going on tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out. So Mendel, tips and guidelines for creating an admin panel. You can make it really simple, right? Like if it's for you, you're the admin. It doesn't have to be flashy. Just create the functionality. If it's for a client and you want it to like look real nice, whatever, then just use a pre-made theme and give them the functionality that they want. But basically, you just want to give yourself the ability to go through some password or authorized routes, like only a specific user, like an admin user, can access. And then once you get access to that, you want to be able to see like all the users or all the posts or all the posts from all the users or be able to search through them. You want to have the ability to manage the data in the database without having to go directly to like the Mongo shell. And so pretty straightforward stuff, right? You just have a route that displays all of them, then you have a delete button next to each one. Technically, you're not really going to be editing people's stuff. You'll just be either deleting it or hiding it or whatever, like putting it in like a waiting list to approve it or what have you. So, I would say it's pretty straightforward, but if you ever need help with that sort of thing, I do offer tutoring. Obviously, it's not something I can just like tell you how to do over a live session, but I do offer one-on-one tutoring, so feel free to reach out if you ever get to the point where you need help. I think you'll be able to do it just with whatever. If you're taking Colt's course or you have experience with building apps already, then building the admin dashboard is not going to be too tricky. Just make sure that the routes are protected by authorization. Is this user logged in, and then are they an admin? And then once you get to that point, and you have like the delete route for the like, let's say you display everything on a page, all the users, all the posts, and then the admin can click delete. In the route that you hit for deleting whatever that asset is or that resource, make sure that it's either the owner of the resource or it's an admin. Don't let anybody else delete it, obviously. Yeah, React Native seems pretty cool, Sebastian. I don't know it. I've never used it, but I would check it out for sure. So Hassan, sounds like you asked a question. I answered your question about pricing for tutoring earlier, by the way. And I'm not seeing anything else from you. But if you said something else, you might have to post it again. I'm not seeing it. It may be getting erased by the the only thing I see on the chat from you is about the pricing for tutoring. And the answer to that is $200 an hour, or if you buy bulk tutoring, then it's cheaper. You can buy 5 hours for $900, or you can buy 10 hours for $1,700. If you had a different question that I ignored, I didn't ignore it on purpose, so sorry. Yep, Valmatic, learning the network is crucial. It's good to have roots in like a community of people, and then also just be able to meet new people. So if you're not using authentication for an admin because you're not using authentication in your project, then you'll just have to password protect the routes. Yeah, Hassan, I did not see that question at all. You can scroll up and let me know if you see it, but I don't see it anywhere. If you don't mind posting it again, I'd be happy to answer it. It may have got like held up. Yeah, it might have been filtered. I didn't realize there was a filter, but there might be. Hold on. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that would necessarily filter out comments, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Unless it's something, yeah, I'm not sure. Let me pop the chat back out, and okay. So yeah, Mendel, you can password protect a route, but if you're not using authentication, but you want to have an admin dashboard, that's going to get kind of tricky. I would just recommend putting in authentication. Just create a user with like Passport if you're doing it with Node. That's probably one of the most straightforward ways. But if you're not using a database at all or something like that, I don't know. I just have to know more about your project. But you can password protect the routes, or you can just have it to where only an admin can, a logged in admin can access the routes. All right. So first question that I'm seeing from you, Hassan, is about will there be any new features coming for the Yelp Camp project? So as part of Colt Steele's Web Developer Bootcamp, I can't say one way or the other. I don't know. Because that's where the project comes from, if you didn't already know. But as far as me adding new stuff, I'll always be looking for little things to add. I still need to do more with that view more button, because I wanted to have it to where, like, as you scroll, it's just infinite scroll. So I'll probably do a live stream on that here soon. But yeah, if I see like anything that I can add to it, then I'll definitely consider adding it to it. But as far as like features that I could just outright tell you, like, yeah, we're gonna build this, and that, I don't have anything like on the docket. So Mendel, like, let's think about this. If you try to access a route, I think with Node there's a way to like do a pop-up and ask for a password, kind of like there is with PHP, but I'd have to look it up. Typically you'll have some middleware that'll intercept the route request, say like, hey, is this person logged in? And if they are and they have a valid session, then is the user from that session a admin? And if they are, then they can go to this route. There's probably a way you could do it to let them go to the route with the password, but I'd have to sit down and like look at it and figure it out. So I can't just tell you like, oh yeah, that ABC, this is how you do it, because I always just do it with the user. Greetings from NL. What is NL? Sorry for not knowing. Jacob, super glad to hear that. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. And yeah, congratulations on getting through your capstone project. Yeah, Hassan, the messages I'm seeing, I mean, I'll show you just so you know I'm not like jerking you around. So if we go back up to the top here, I've got you here asking about pricing, which I've answered twice now. And then got you again here saying that I skipped you. Nothing between the pricing question and that one that I'm seeing on my end. And then these couple here, this one where you asked about the Yelp Camp project, and then this one where you say that you're scrolling up. So yeah, I'm not seeing the ones that you're asking about. I'm really sorry. I'm not sure what's happening there. Hopefully you can get them into the chat and I'll be able to see them. But yeah, it's not anything I'm doing on my end. So sorry about that. All right, so it's 5 o'clock. We started at 4, it's an hour ago. I'm gonna wrap up. If anybody has any last minute questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and cut things short. So let me check. Okay, so Mandela, would it seem extra to implement the whole passport thing just for admin? So I don't know the scope of your project. Like if you have, if it's like a blog and there's articles, like, and you're giving a user the ability to create the articles, and then maybe are other people able to sign up and comment on the articles, or is it just people being able to read it? And no need to apologize. Totally fine. But feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Discord. I'll put my Discord username. Make sure you put a capital I. If you want to talk more about it, again, if it merits like a tutoring session, I'm happy to do that. If that's something you can afford. But yeah, I just need to kind of know more about the scope of the project, so it'd be easier for me to like actually explain and answer. But to answer your question, is it like extra work to add that the user? If you already have a database like a MongoDB database or whatever you're using, Postgres, MySQL, uh, I don't think it would be more difficult. If you're using like Node and Express, then it shouldn't take you more than like 15 minutes to maybe 20 minutes to tap in Passport and build in the middleware and have users and stuff like that. You can copy all that code over from Cold Steel's Web Developer Bootcamp if you're part of that course. Um, so I would definitely consider adding in users and using Passport if you're not already. Good luck, Ragia. Thank you for hanging out with us. Good luck with your project. Hassan, no problem. Sorry about the difficulties with the chat. You can reach out to me on Discord. I put my username down below. Hopefully you can see that. If you want to ask me there, I'm happy to answer your questions. Jacob, no problem. Thanks a lot. Yeah, again, Mendel, don't worry about the admin thing. Totally cool. Twitzer, how close to hireable would you consider someone who had just completed the Web Developer Bootcamp? That not an easy question to answer because it depends on how like much previous skill you have or previous knowledge, I should say. Um, did you just complete the projects in the course? Do you have pre-existing knowledge? Have you built a resume, or rather, have you built a portfolio and put some of your projects on your resume? Have you done any like contracting work yet? There's a lot of steps that you can take to just make yourself stand out above and beyond other graduates of the boot camp. So there's some other questions that would need to be answered before I can say how hireable you would be. But let's just imagine that you're someone who has no prior experience. You take the entire course, you finish at 100%, you have all the exercises and projects completed, and you can, maybe you haven't even built a portfolio yet, but you can put those things onto a portfolio if you want to. Then it's still going to be an uphill battle, because you're at that point, you're still kind of just like a knowledgeable entry-level developer, right? You still need to build experience, and you still need to master some skills that Colt's course couldn't necessarily give you, like how to get an interview, like how to get through the application process to even get to the interview process, and then once you get to the interview process, how to get through the interview process to get to the second and third interview and to ultimately get a job. So I've seen people do it, and if you go to my YouTube, I've got some success stories, and those are just a few, obviously, anecdotal evidence of people getting jobs. Most of the people in those interviews had little, some had a varying level of experience. Some had a lot of experience beforehand, others did not. But one thing that's true for most of them is that they all did things above and beyond, in addition to Colt's boot camp. So they did like free code camp, or they did like contract work, or they like practiced other things on the side. So I would say on a scale from like 1 to 10, your hireability, having just completed the course, is probably like a 3 or a 4. But there's a lot of things that go into it. Like it's not always necessarily a what you know thing, which ultimately will be about what you know, but it can also be a network thing. Like you may meet somebody who's like the CEO of a company and just jive with them, and they're like, wow, this person's really cool, I want to give them an opportunity, and so they offer you a job even though you're still an entry level developer. And then during your work for that company, you can get a mentorship from other developers within the company, and then you can have growth that way. So sometimes it's not just what you know, it's who you know. So definitely be sure and engage with communities and get out there on like Discord and Twitter. COVID makes it difficult to get out in person, but whatever way possible you can get out there and communicate with other people, that can be helpful. Cool. Thanks, Ragia. Have a good one. Enjoy your meditation. Mendel, your project website full of articles posted by the owner of the website. No one else adds any articles. But you do have a database that you're storing those articles in, I imagine, right? So you're already connected to a database. So adding users to be able to authenticate with shouldn't be too much more above and beyond what you already have. Twitzer, no problem. Thank you for showing up. Stylo, if you're here still, thank you again for the $5 super chat. That was incredible. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. This will be available to watch or to rewatch whenever it's done processing. And we'll be doing more of these in the future. Look out on the community wall to vote on different times to do this sort of thing. I have another one happening tonight at 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, but it's not on YouTube. It's going to be live on the Discord channel for the Web Development Bootcamp. If you're a member of that Discord server, if you're a student of that course, you can get access to the Discord server. And then you can join us there. 9:30 p.m. Central. Thank you, Mendel, no problem. Good luck with your project. And catch y'all next time.